Hey, what's up, everybody? Back here for another episode of our wonderful podcast. Today we're going to talk about the House of the Dragon finale. Oh my God, this was a big one. This was a huge one. A lot of stuff happened in this one, of course.
Yeah.
Uh, the Black Queen, I believe the episode is called. I'm going to
Mhm.
sit down and talk with my favorite cousin, Evalina, and we're going to
No,
break
I'm
this
so happy
down.
to be here.
Yep, we're gonna break this down and talk about some of our favorite scenes in this episode. Yeah, Evelina, let's try to hold off on the big scene at the end until the end.
Okay.
What was your overall take on this finale here?
I really enjoyed it. I felt like I was at the edge of my seat throughout the whole thing. I felt like they had a lot to cover, especially since we hadn't seen them or this side, the blacks, right, at all last week because the previous week was, the Green Council and we got to see, Alicent and her side like take control. So I was really interesting to see like how they were going to address things, what they were going to touch on, some of these early moves that they're making and how they would play out. And of course, I was anticipating that we, might not enter season 2 with all of our current cast. So I was really like dreading who it was going to be.
Yeah, yeah. It's a Game of Thrones show, and for a Game
Mhm.
of Thrones show, we've had surprisingly few deaths for this whole first season. So it's kind of you
Mhm.
kind of go into it saying, okay, something's going to happen here, even if you didn't read um, the book or anything.
Mhm.
But yeah, so I think like overall, if as we get into like the beginning of this episode, like Rhaenyra was kind of at a huge disadvantage, right? Because she didn't even know that the king was dead, and the Green Council like had all that time to like make their plans, do their coronation, make all their moves on
Right.
the board, and so she's like 6 moves behind just from the get go. Um,
Yeah.
this first conversation with her and her son Luke, the opening scene where he basically doesn't really want. He says he doesn't really want to be the Lord of Driftmark. He doesn't really want to do anything, and he calls his mother. He calls her perfect.
Mhm.
And
Yeah, I go
go ahead,
ahead.
go ahead, go ahead.
No, I thought that was such a sweet moment because it really shows how much he looks up to her and what he thinks about her. But at the same time, we do see that like he's lacking a bit of confidence in himself. So that moment of like her kind of like consoling him and like, trying to like teach him a lesson there. Yeah, it was just such a cute moment to hear that from him. And I was like, wow, what a nice comment to receive from your son.
Yeah, and I kind of liked it because a lot of the relationships we see portrayed on series or movies, they always have like the little bratty teenager, right? He's like, "Oh my god,
Mhm.
mom," or like "dad," or just leave me alone, and So this
Yeah.
one showed like, both her sons here, both the older sons, have their own agency, and they both really, really love her, and they have a good relationship with her, which
Hmm.
was nice to see, and they weren't like bratty teenagers about it. They are teenagers about other things, like in the previous episode where they had the family dinner and it all went to crap because they can't hold their tempers or whatever. But it was nice.
Right.
Yeah, it's nice to see a positive relationship between a mother and son in a mainstream TV show. Obviously, it's not really going to last very long.
Hmm.
If they give you something nice, they got to take it away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it also like really shows the contrast between Allison's relationship with her kids and then Rhaenyra's
Oh, very good
relationship with
point.
her
Very good
kids.
point. Yeah.
Yeah. Because like with Allison, like you can tell that she's really forcing like her own will on the kids and like what she thinks is best for them. Whereas like yes, Rhaenyra is doing the same thing, but like more in like a loving and teaching way of like, yes, this is what I want for you to be the Lord of Driftmark, but also like I'm here to help you get there, and like she wants to be more of like a support figure than like an ordering like you have to do this or like this is your, like role or your responsibility in the kingdom to the realm or whatever. So yeah, I did like to see the difference in motherhood there.
That I mean, you bring that's a really good point, Evelina, and that made while you were saying that, that made me think of their own mothers. Allison's mother died when she was really young,
Mm-hmm.
whereas Rhaenyra's mother died when she was still pretty young, but like at least she had up until her teenage years a loving, doting mother, right? So I
Mm-hmm.
wonder if that,
Yeah, Emma.
that probably, I mean, that definitely had some effect on their own paths to motherhood, I guess.
Motherhood, yeah.
Yeah.
Because you're right, like Allison herself, we really see her the whole time being raised by her father and like being led down a certain path due to her father's influence. And I feel like Allison's motherhood is like more of like a direct, like I tell you what to do and like you do it, which is very much like the male father roles that we see in, Game of Thrones or in House of the Dragon.
Yeah, that's true. That's a very good point. Yes. Um, and
Mhm.
she also has Otto as a father who is even more of like you do what I tell you, that kind of attitude than maybe a normal father, than like a Ned Stark or something.
Right, right. Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So this next scene we have was Princess Rhaenys. If we remember from the previous episode, she escaped on Dragonback from King's Landing. So now she's arrived and with the news of Aegon's coronation, and she delivers the news. But then she's also she's kind of observing Rhaenyra in this scene as well to see how Rhaenyra reacts. I liked watching Rhaenys watching Rhaenyra. Um,
Hmm.
in this scene. Did you get a similar vibe from that?
Uh, I think I didn't get the vibe of Rhaenys watching Rhaenyra until later, um, which comes in a few scenes when, well, for one example, when Daemon first introduced Rhaenyra as like her whole title, Queen of the Seven Kingdoms, Andals, First Men, all of that, and everybody does like their little dip bow. I noticed Rhaenys doesn't, and she's just looking at her. And then same thing when the brother Eric, one of the twins, brings the crown. Same thing, everybody's bowing except for Rainey. So I didn't really catch on to that Rainey's watching Rhaenyra because, Rainey's really like the queen that never was. Like she wants to see, okay, what would another woman ruler, like the first one now, really do? So I didn't catch on to that till later.
Yeah. We'll talk about like the relationship between Rhaenys and Rhaenyra for a second, and maybe you can enlighten me, being a female adult, a woman in today's real world. I was getting a little bit of the sense of like Rhaenys was kind of like, well, if I couldn't do it, you can't do it. At least earlier on in
Mm-hmm.
the season.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, like here in this episode, you see her change her tune, her attitude towards that. But especially earlier on in the season, Rhaenys was like, I wasn't able to do it because we live in this misogynistic patriarchal society. I didn't get elected over Viserys when we were younger,
Mm-hmm.
so you won't be able to do it too. It's not going to work. Um, do you think that mirrors like real life? Are there like a lot of women out there that are like, oh, you'll never get ahead because we're women and men are all pigs or something like that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Well, actually, something happened today with Marcella, one of my older sister. My older sister called me, and she was saying how like she kind of had a little back and forth in this chat with this male in one of their work Slack chats. And then I was like, you shouldn't have said anything. You should have just let him be a dick to you. And she was like, why? And I was like, well, like, what if it comes that you're coming up for a promotion and someone looks up your Slack history? they don't want to see that like you're, kind of making your point to another guy. And I thought, you know what? That's so me, like submitting to the men in power, and me even like thinking about, who is that? I don't even know if he was like actually above her or they're at the same level, whatever. But I was like, wow, like I'm so conditioned to just be like, let the men win, like let them have their say, let them make their little, you know, bitch ass comment to you, and then that way like it can protect you in the future from what something that you want. So definitely I think yes, to answer your question, yes, but also with other women in the workplace, I do feel that we compete sometimes for like the male attention to do, to be more favorable in their eyes, like so that when a promotion does come or, a new project comes, it's like I want to be considered. So I'm going to kiss his ass or whatever, something like that.
um, yeah. Thank you for that answer. That was enlightening. And um, yeah, I think a lot of the problems that, or at least the problem that you described, like a lot of men go through the same thing too. It's just that
Mm,
the number of people that are like, it seems like the proportion of people that butt heads in the workplace or whatever are higher, would be leaning higher towards males, right? Um,
mm-hmm.
and I guess women are kind of conditioned from a young age to not seek out confrontation like that, or just let if it doesn't matter, just let them, butt their
Yeah.
heads or let them have their whatever. It doesn't really matter.
Mm-hmm.
But it does matter in a lot of cases, and I would wish that there was less of that from men in general and from people in general.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, some women do that too, but
Right.
yeah. But anyway, sorry, we get maybe a little too serious for our House of the Dragon discussion.
Yeah, bringing it back
Bring,
into the present
Bringing
day
it back
when
into
we're
the
back
present
in
day.
10 AD or something, 100 and something AD.
Um, this labor scenes. Oh man, so I don't know how many labor scenes, birthing scenes we've gotten this season. It's been quite a few,
Yeah,
more than I care to watch.
yeah.
um,
This is our fourth labor scene and the second one that we've gotten from Rhaenyra.
okay, thank you. Fourth labor scene
Hmm.
overall, the second one from Rhaenyra.
Yes.
And this one was kind of exacerbated or by the news of Aegon's coronation and the death of her father. And it turns out the poor child was stillborn. So,
Hmm.
and also interestingly, Rhaenyra chose to do everything herself. She refused help from the midwives. Um,
Hmm.
I was trying to understand what is going through her head there, like why she would refuse the help. Um,
Yeah.
and I couldn't really come up with like proper reasons, other than maybe she was just like, super in grief and anguish, so she's not really thinking clearly.
Hmm. Yeah, I don't know. Now that you bring it up, I think like the news that she delivered, can we really say that, or the news that, sorry, Rhaenys delivered was the turning point where it triggered this birth of the child. So like this news was so much that Rhaenyra got so stressed out and she went into labor because she had like a moment where, she like catches herself and puts her hand on her belly when Rhaenys is talking, like, oh my gosh, like it's here. So I think if we can say that, yes, the news was so much that it induced the labor, then I think that like Rhaenyra saw it as like, I well, maybe this sounds kind of bad, but like she really has to get through this pregnancy, alive, one for herself, and then as quickly as possible because she has to, make some decisions, like some really important decisions and moves. Um, yeah. What was the original question? Oh, why she wanted to do everything herself. Uh, yeah, I don't know.
Well,
That's as far as
I
I
mean, you
got.
bring up a good point too, in that she had to make decisions, and maybe she felt that, now that you said that, I'm thinking all the men were kind of waiting for her,
Hmm.
the other lords and whatever, and Damon was kind of making his plans, even though her son relayed the news that she wanted nobody to make any moves until she was done with the childbirth. So maybe she was just like super frustrated that she had to give birth in like this, the worst timing possible, obviously.
Hmm.
Um, but also the fact that maybe she didn't want to seem weak, like needing help
Yeah.
in front of the women, in front of the men. Although none of the men are there, but it could have just been like a psychological thing for her. Uh,
Hmm.
yeah, I mean the worst birth timing possible, right?
Yeah. Really bad timing. I also thought about. Oh, hi. Is it Hunter?
Yeah, yeah.
He needs to sleep, get in a little comfy spot like Kilala.
Hush.
um, I also thought back to how Emma had told Rhaenyra that they fight their battles like through having children. She had said something along those lines. You remember, like, oh, this is our, as women, like, this is our battlefield,
Yeah, her mom, yeah,
right?
told her that. Yeah.
Yeah, her mom Emma had said that. So I thought, you know, maybe Rhaenyra really felt like, okay, this is something that I need to handle on my own. Like this is my battle right here, and then she'll go and deal with like the whole realm, the whole war that's gonna be coming, that real battle. Um, yeah, I don't know. What did you think?
Um, yeah, that could play into it too. Um, I think, like I said, it was maybe she just like wasn't thinking clearly, and maybe she didn't want to
Hmm.
look weak in front of her courtiers,
Yeah,
if you will.
yeah.
Um,
I do think that she handled it in like the strongest way possible though. Like yes, having going into labor at like a really bad time can come off as weak, but I felt like wow, like seeing her handle it like that, I was like she's so strong. She did this the strongest possible way.
yeah,
Like by herself through what we see as quickly, even though in the books we know it's much longer, right? Her labor,
hmm,
wasn't it like a couple days that
yeah,
she
yeah.
was
It's
in
like two or
labor
three
for?
days. Yeah,
Yeah. Um, so
yeah. She does look pretty badass delivering it all by
mhm.
herself. I don't think we've seen, or I haven't seen something like that. In media. Uh, so it does make for a good moment on television. Um,
Mhm.
what did you think of immediately after she had this funeral? And I felt like this funeral was very clearly mirrored the funeral in episode one, where for her mother and her little baby brother that didn't make it.
Mhm. So like slightly before this, she wraps the baby herself, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Can we talk about that for a
Go
quick
ahead. Go ahead.
second?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, I thought it was so powerful seeing her wrapping the baby like on her knees at the table, wrapping the baby herself, and then having like the silent sisters in the back, just like standing by watching. Because we had seen something similar to this with, of course, I'm forgetting the sea snake's brother when he got his head cut off, right?
Yeah. Vaymond.
And
Yeah.
so when he was being wrapped, like Renice is just kind of standing off watching, right? She's not really involved.
Mm-hmm.
But then with this, like we see Rhaenyra like just giving so much love and care into this baby, like really, brought this one into the world by herself and like guiding them out and through the funeral that we're gonna see, just like all by herself. Like I thought that was amazing, and it really set up like such a connection between her and this stillborn baby, even though we only see them for such a short time, and this baby's only here for such a short time in the grand scheme of how things are going to play out. But it really shows like the impact that this one, because it's her daughter, right? Her only daughter,
Her only daughter.
this
Yeah.
baby.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they that for me really established like such a strong connection with the daughter.
Yeah, yeah. Man, it's so sad these like miscarriage and stillborn things, and this is something in the real
Mm-hmm.
world we don't people don't really talk about.
Mm-hmm.
Like they always say, like pregnant couples don't tell anybody you're pregnant till after I don't know, a certain time, the first trimester or
Yeah.
something.
I think yeah, I want to say it's like 3 or 4 months, but I really don't know. That's just like what I think.
Yeah, it's like don't start because it's so common to have issues before then. So,
Mm-hmm.
um,
Yeah.
and obviously it's really sad when you see it on screen. They're fictional characters, but yeah, it's
Mm-hmm.
ah,
Yeah.
it just
And I
kills me.
also think, yeah, like, sorry, going back to real life for a second, but even, when I feel like when you meet people and you know that they've had a miscarriage, like it's just so like taboo. Like one, you don't talk about it, you don't bring it up, but then like you care differently with them, like you're gentler with them or something. But they won't talk about it. You won't ever bring it up. But it's like such a big part of like, like a lot of people, building their family and trying to, have kids. But it's just something that we don't talk about, which is really sad. So I think seeing the birth, incredible. And then even though, our fourth one, and then seeing her wrapping it and then into this funeral, just like, yeah, just like kind of put it in our face. Like this is something real.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. One thing that I
Hmm.
liked they did here, and I didn't even realize it the first time I watched it. I just got this the second time. Is the funeral, as you said, gets interrupted by Eric, Eric or Arik, one of the guys.
One
Um,
of them.
and he comes in. He had stolen the crown that Viserys wore, and he brought it
Hmm.
to Rhaenyra, and he kind of renewed his Kingsguard oath um, to her because this is the brother that obviously hates Aegon. Um,
Hmm.
uh, so I really like this, and then we get this nice scene, as you said, where everybody is bowing, and Rhaenys is the only one that doesn't bow, but it's a really nice, poignant scene. And I was watching it with my mom, and my mom, and then she's like, "Oh, she's not bowing." And I was like,
Hmm.
"Well, who's gonna make her bow? Like, are you gonna make her bow? She's like Rainey's gonna do whatever she wants." Um,
Hmm.
so I thought that was pretty funny. Rainey's is probably one of my favorite characters this season. Um, yeah, uh,
Hmm.
but I just thought that the renewal of the Kingsguard oath was cool because I don't think we'd actually seen a Kingsguard make their vows on screen, even in Game of Thrones. Um,
Yeah, I only remembered like the Castle Black kind of
yeah, and they're
vow.
similar vows.
Similar.
Yeah,
But then I remember thinking like, oh, I don't think we've actually seen like a King's Guard dedicate themselves to someone,
yeah,
like with their whole speech
yeah,
spiel.
and it's
Um,
yeah,
Go ahead.
it's nice to see a Kingsguard that is what a Kingsguard is supposed to be. Like he's supposed to be honorable, supposed to be uh, loyal, and supposed to be strong, right? And obviously, this
Hmm.
brother is. Um, and it seems like most of the Kingsguard are. Damon kind of like black or is it blackmailed or I don't know what the word is.
Definitely coerced
Coerced,
them.
yeah. They might not have been wholly willing participants for those two, but it's nice to see people not like Kristen Cole, or in
Yeah.
original Game of Thrones, the Meryn Trant, that the guy that liked little girls, that Kingsguard. So it's like,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, some of the Kingsguard we've seen on the screen have not been ideal uh,
Hmm.
knights or whatever. So this was kind of cool to see. I'm a little bit sad about. Well, I don't want to spoil anything for anybody, but where it's going for Mister Eric or Arik or whatever his name is.
Hmm.
Um,
Yes.
but I won't
I
spoil it.
don't think I know his fate. I think I know a little bit. I mean, there's two brothers on opposing sides, so I think I know where that's going.
Yeah,
I don't know directly what the fate is. Um, I wanted to go back to what you said about this funeral mirroring the funeral for Emma.
Yeah.
Did you want to make a comment there? Because I actually don't remember the funeral for Emma. Oh, no, no, I do. That one was they had the one for her and then the one for the little baby too.
Yeah, at the same time. Yeah.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
young Rhaenyra had her dragon light them on fire.
Okay. Oh, yeah. And then this Rhaenyra, she had the dragon, or was it Damon who lit
I don't think
this
they had a
baby?
dragon. I think they just lit it on fire this time. But
Okay.
I don't remember a
I'll have
dragon
to
in that
watch it
scene.
again.
Yeah. Maybe they
Yeah,
they
I
had to
don't.
save the dragon budget for the final scene.
Yeah. Yeah, because I'm like, did they even light it on fire? Because Eric came in and interrupted, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah, I don't yeah, they didn't show the ending of the funeral like yeah,
mhm,
cuz the funeral kind of turned
yeah,
into the coronation for her. Yeah.
yeah,
Um so this next scene we got was Otto Hightower coming with terms for to try to avert war, I guess. But it's like
yeah,
these terms, dude, like none of these terms, it doesn't even matter if it's coming from Allison or from you. Like nobody's gonna accept these stupid terms.
hmm,
It's like that meme. Like ain't nobody got time for that. Like no, nobody's got
yeah,
time for those stupid terms. Like come on, man.
yeah.
um, and but I
So
thought it was also
I,
cool that
oh,
like he came up that same walkway in like episode 2 or 3 or 4 or whatever it was.
mhm,
And then Damon comes down with this. It's like almost the exact same scene, right? They meet each other
yeah,
in midway, and then of
yeah,
course Rhaenyra shows up on Dragonback later again in a
again.
dramatic entrance. Yeah,
Yeah. I think they use like the exact same, like I want someone to put it side by side if they use like the exact same, points in of like the dragon flying and then landing in the same spot because I feel like that dragon landed in the exact same spot as before and they were just like, okay, let's reuse some of this footage, change the colors and lighting around.
yeah,
But in the same way that this scene mirrors the one from the earlier episode, Rhaenyra comes around the same way and then stands on Daemon's side, right? Because before she was standing on Otto's side, trying to get the egg back from Daemon. And then it's like so much tension when they're coming back from the egg. It's like, are you going to start? Are you going to start fighting? But then this one, swords are actually
hmm
drawn. So now I felt like that really symbolized, all right, we're at a new place, like, the violence is gonna start, the tensions are too high now. This can't be like just settled with some terms, some terms and conditions that nobody's
terms
gonna
and
read through.
conditions that nobody's gonna read. It's a good
Yeah.
one. Yeah.
Yeah, but I remember listening to the terms and thinking, you know what? Did a really good job putting this together. Like this, she really tried, like she tried to show her friend, or, quotes here, friend, like, give her some happiness, like, here, your children can be this and that. But at the same time, it was like such a slap in the face, with like, oh, your son can be the cupbearer and the wine bearer. And I was like, what? Uh,
So sorry, there's some loud noises outside. Sorry, it's okay.
you want to check on it really quick?
I think we're okay. We're okay. Sorry about that. Um,
No problem.
yeah, no, actually, I'm glad you brought up the terms. It's that the cupbearer's position or whatever position, and then he
Hmm.
said your other boys, your by Damon, your other sons will also be given high positions at court. Is
Hmm.
but she would be allowed to have Dragonstone. That's actually I read it as actually it's like a hostage situation. Um,
Oh,
so like
okay.
uh trying to think of examples. So like in the main Game of Thrones books, it's like very common to have a ward, right? A
Mm-hmm.
WARD, a ward, where like you send like a son to go live with another lord, and he becomes their ward. Now,
Mm-hmm.
if you have really good relationships with them, like if they're your bannerman or you're their bannerman or something, um,
Mm-hmm.
that's like a really positive thing. It's like, oh, you're strengthening your friendship, and hopefully have future alliances will come out of that. But
Mm-hmm.
in if you have hostile relationships, it's actually more of like a hostage situation. Case in point would be like Theon Greyjoy in the
Mm-hmm.
main series.
I was thinking of him too.
Yeah, he's probably like the best example. When his dad failed in his rebellion, then they took Theon as a hostage. They called him a ward, but he was effectively a
Right.
hostage.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, Ned was a nice lord, so like he didn't like Theon wasn't
Rough him
mistreated or
up.
anything like that.
Right.
Um, but there was always the possibility that if Balon went out of line again, then Theon's life might be in danger.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I read it in this one. Is like basically they're asking her to give up her younger sons as hostages uh,
Mm-hmm.
for this, and I was like, well, that's totally unacceptable. Because the younger
Yeah.
sons are going to be at court. They're going to be totally be under the High Tower's um, influence and control. And so,
Right.
I mean, worst case scenario, they turn into hostages and they use them against you, or they kill them for whatever reason, for a perceived
Mm-hmm.
slight by you. Um, I mean, and another case would be like they turn them against you, because they
Mm-hmm.
are with them all the time. They'll just influence them and say like, oh, just keep bad mouthing you until, I mean, because until they grow up. So
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh yeah, totally unacceptable, totally unacceptable. And like Allison wouldn't give up her kids to stay at Dragonstone. Like, no way,
Yeah.
no way, or her grandkids or whatever. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, the terms they're just like sham terms. I say
Mm-hmm.
it's just like
Sham term.
yeah, it's just like politics. Like you gotta like make an effort to show you're making an effort, but not really. You
Mm-hmm.
know.
Yeah.
Um, I do also want to say that like just a little funnier comment. It seems like Damon and Otto they had this confrontation here, and they had it like years ago in the previous episode. They don't seem like they've aged at all. I was
You
like,
know what? I was thinking, yeah, the same thing with Damon when, well, a little bit later when him and Rhaenyra are talking about the prophecy. I'm like, man, this guy has not aged at all, and Rhaenyra is like a grown woman. But yeah, between Otto as well. I mean, I think he just got some additional facial hair.
yeah. I
Um,
mean, the guy
yeah.
Otto, the guy is a great grandfather now. He's got because Allison is a grandmother, so he's a great grandfather, and he still looks pretty good.
Yeah. And then like seeing Viserys age and like we know Viserys had plenty of health issues, but like seeing him age so extremely and then Otto just like not at all
Yeah,
is like very much contrast there. Yeah. I did want to say in this scene, I like that we saw a super quick, like just a flash quick exchange between the twin brothers, Eric and then I don't remember the other one's name. Um, is it Eric and Aaron?
Eric and Auric.
Arik.
Yeah,
Arik. Okay. Yeah, but because I feel like the next time that we see them, it's not gonna be so nice.
yeah. It's gonna be a Clegane Bowl 2.0,
Oh, really?
or I don't know, maybe.
Well, now I'm even more intrigued, but like when I saw that exchange, I was like, oh, the next time we see them, it is not gonna be this nice.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, war can tear families apart. Yeah, or the
Yeah.
Targaryen family isn't the only family being torn apart.
Hmm.
Excuse me. Um, oh, I want to talk about this scene with Rhaenyra and Daemon where she it's like a war council. It starts as a war council, but then Damon kind of gets all in her face, so then she tells everybody to leave the room.
Mm-hmm.
And so she's talking about the prophecy that Viserys told her, and then Damon like starts strangling her,
Yeah.
and I'm like, "Why are you strangling her, dude?" Like,
Yeah, I thought that was really odd. I was kind of off put by that, and I think I had seen similar things online afterward where people were like, "What?" Like we had seen him help Viserys onto the throne, put the crown on his head, and like him, I don't know. It just I didn't forget how horrible of a person Damon was, but this definitely reminded me that he's, kind of a bad person.
yeah, maybe that was the only reason they put this in there, because it seemed very out of place and kind of came out of nowhere that he would just get that kind of reaction just from her talking
Hmm.
about the the prophecy and Viserys.
Right.
I,
I also saw this as like Damon has his own plans for the throne. Like he wanted it. He wanted like to be named heir after Viserys, right? Which he wasn't. And then now like is his chance, and he really like wants to seize it. But Rhaenyra's like, no, let's take a step back. Like let's handle this like in the best way that we can. And I think like that was just him like bubbling up like I wanted this for all these years. I finally have it like within reach. And like Rhaenyra is just like no, like she doesn't want to do what Damon's planned is, or start so soon making such like yeah, quick moves.
that's true. Maybe he thought that she would be more malleable or inclined to listen to him, like let him take the
Hmm.
lead. Because even if he wouldn't get like the title of king, maybe he would just essentially get to run things through her.
Yeah,
He was hoping
like he
she
would
would do the woman thing you were talking about, and just let him do whatever.
Yeah. And like he would certainly have like influence and power, if Rhaenyra is sitting on the throne. So I think like I mean that's probably the closest he can really get, right? And he's like he wants it so soon, but it's just she's just not trying to go that route just yet.
Yeah. In so like in the introduction to him in there's a couple of stories that George R. R. Martin released about this time. The big one is Fire and Blood, right? But the first story he
Hmm.
released was actually called The Rogue Prince, and it's like a very short novel about Damon's life. And I think in like the
Hmm.
first page or the first paragraph, it said something like he was grandson to a king and brother to a king and grandfather to a king or something, and but he was never a king. Oh,
Hmm.
it's kind of like always a bridesmaid, never a bride, that kind of thing for him.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Um,
So
so
then that makes sense that like all of this, he probably feels a certain way about that he strangles her. Yeah, I still didn't really like it though. And she had just like, gone through all that labor, dude. Like she needs all the oxygen she can get right now.
yeah, yeah, I mean, she just lost her father. She lost her baby. She lost, you
Mhm.
know,
The
the
kingdom,
kingdom.
or
Yeah, the
it's
kingdom.
slipping,
Yeah, it's
slipping through the
slipping.
cracks, right?
Yeah, so it's like you gotta hold your temper, man. But
Mhm.
maybe you're right. Maybe
And then
it's to show that he's not always a good guy. Because there are a lot of people that like he's their favorite character out there, and I'm like, dude, he's not a
mhm,
great guy.
yeah. Yeah, that is true. I see a lot of that online, like Damon this, Damon that, but it's like, I did think it was interesting when Rhaenyra brought up the prophecy, and I felt like Damon, because he didn't know about it, right? I felt like he wasn't like a trustworthy enough person to know about it, which is why like maybe Viserys never told him. But then I also thought was this dream from Aegon the Conqueror, was it like common knowledge in the history textbooks?
No, no. And actually, okay, I gotta get this straight before I start talking. um, so, like, it's not clear that all the Targaryens knew about this dream. Not like how Viserys tells Rhaenyra, and actually
Mm-hmm.
how Viserys tells Rhaenyra kind of doesn't really make sense because, um, if that were because Aegon's two sons kind of one son usurped the throne from the other son, so like
Mm.
it was never like a smooth succession, and there was never a time where like a king and an heir would be able to tell them. Aegon could have told his
Mm-hmm.
first son Aenys, but the second son Maegor usurped the throne from Aenys. So it's like there was never a time where Aenys would have told Maegor about it.
Told him.
Yeah, especially since Aenys
Oh,
had his own sons as his heirs. So some of it doesn't really make sense. But I think to answer your question in the books, I think it was written down somewhere because Jon Snow's dad, Rhaegar Targaryen, there's a story about him in the books, like reading something uh, in a book and realizing that it's a prophecy, and he thinks the prophecy is about him. Um,
mm,
but then later on, when he gets older, he realizes he thinks the prophecy is about his son. So it's
right.
probably written somewhere, but it's not like common knowledge.
Okay. Because I had brought it up with Alex and he was like, well, that's Damon doesn't know about it because he didn't focus on the history books. And I was like, well, actually, yes, but no, I don't think it's like they're all studying it. Like, because we know that Rhaenyra, she really knew that stuff, but she kind of played it off like she didn't, right? Like in that garden scene with Alicent.
Hmm.
But that's not why she knows it. She knows it because Viserys told her, or right now only her. She's the only one that knows.
Yeah.
Um, and then and this makes me want to go back and watch all of Game of Thrones because I feel like in Game of Thrones they were always pulling from like the history books about like the White Walkers were coming, or like there was some kind of knowledge of like the Children of the Forest and all of that like they were able to piece together the whole, long night eventually. So now I'm like, okay, I need to watch all of Game of Thrones, and every time they reference like some kind of book or text, like, because then didn't Samuel Tarly read that the dragon glass could kill them?
Yeah. Yeah.
Did he read that, or he
I think
actually
he
killed
read it,
them?
but he
Killed one
also
of them.
used one to kill one.
Yeah, yeah. So that was in there somewhere. Like, why would they have known that? I don't know.
No, that's a good point.
Somebody wrote it down.
I'd say the show actually pulled the main Game of Thrones show pulled back on a lot of the prophecy stuff. Um,
Mm,
I feel like in the books, like every other chapter, they're talking about a prophecy. But in the show, they didn't. They only mentioned it. At least this particular prophecy, I don't even think they talked about it. Song of Ice and Fire, actually,
mm,
except when Sam was talking about John, it says he's the Song of Ice and Fire or something like that. So,
mm.
um, yeah, if you're gonna rewatch the show, don't rewatch. There won't be a whole lot of prophecy references there. If you want to reread the series, though, there's a lot in there. Or if you don't want to read the whole books, you can read about theories and prophecies online and stuff. Um,
I was thinking maybe I'll read all of Fire and Blood because isn't the second season not coming out until 2024?
oh, don't tell me that.
That's
Don't tell me that.
well, they're starting to film in the spring of 2023,
Oh, then
but
yeah, it's not
then
gonna be out in time. Yeah.
people were saying, yeah, 2024. So I'm like, all right, I got all this time. I might as well just read the whole book because like I already want to know what's gonna happen.
Yeah, and
But
like I said, you don't have to read the whole thing.
mhm.
Um, well, I can send you the chapter that it starts with because it goes through all the generations of Targaryens from Aegon the Conqueror.
Okay.
Um, Aegon
Mhm.
the Conqueror is a little bit interesting, but it's kind of one dimensional. It's not a whole lot of interest like going on there. But then when they get, and then they talk about his sons and one son usurping another. But then when it talks about like Jaehaerys' reign, the king before Viserys, um,
Mm-hmm.
so it's like a long peaceful reign. So the only thing they talk about is like all his kids and all the like keeping up with the Targaryens drama that they do. So if you like that kind of stuff, it could be good. But for me, it was a little
Yeah.
bit boring, you know.
Okay.
But yeah,
Yeah.
if you want to
That.
start just
Yeah.
with like Alicent's and Rhaenyra and all that, I think the first chapter is called Heirs of the Dragon. Um, you could
Okay.
start there. Yeah. Um, yeah. Alternatively, you don't have to read all of Fire and Blood. You could read The Rogue Prince and then The Princess and the Queen. Those are like the two novellas he released before Fire and Blood, and
Okay.
they are shorter. Like even if you read both of them, they're shorter than Fire and Blood. That's what my
Okay.
mom did because in Fire and Blood there's a lot of like battles and stuff, and it's very history bookish. It's like this
Mm-hmm.
battle took place here, and so died, and then so and so fought so and so. You know, um,
Yeah.
but if you want to know all the details, by all means, do whatever you want to do.
Okay. Thank you.
they're all good reads. I read them all. So, um,
Mm-hmm.
what man, this scene with Rhaenyra saying goodbye to her sons, like I knew it was coming, so I was like, trying not to
Yeah.
cry. Um, basic.
I
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. No.
Well, I was just gonna say, I wish we got more scenes with them, you know. But that's just me saying that now because I know um, what's gonna happen. But I thought it was really nice to see them listen to her and like want to obey her with like having them swear on the seven pointed star book, whatever their text is called. So I was like, oh wow, like these are good kids. They listen to their mom, you know. They obey. So I was like, all right, well, we know if anything bad happens, it's not going to be these two's fault.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I wish we got a little more, at least before. I think in two episodes before, we got a scene with Rhaenyra and the oldest son, Jace, when he was like trying to learn
Mhm.
Valyrian or whatever. But
Oh yeah. I do
you
remember.
definitely do see that they're dutiful sons. They want to do, and they will do
Hmm.
anything for their mother, you know? Like I said
Yeah.
before, it's a nice contrast to see like a healthy mother-son relationships on screen. And of course, they have to go and ruin it for us, right? You can't just
Yeah.
have a happy little family. Before we get to the big, scene at the end, I wanted to ask, what did you think of this scene? I don't know if you even remember it, but there's a really quick scene with Damon and another dragon
Hmm.
inside the volcano, and I didn't even know which dragon it was if it wasn't for the subtitles, because but this dragon is Vermithor, which is the old king's dragon, Jaehaerys, the king before Viserys.
Hmm.
So since then, he's been riderless since the old king died, and I was kind of trying to figure out what is his Damon's angle here, or why are they showing this scene? Do you have any thoughts on that?
So, okay. I do have some thoughts. I think it goes back to the scene where Rhaenyra comes into the council, or like when they're all standing around the table, and Damon lists all the dragons that they have and says the ones that are still riderless. And he's like, and I've got three eggs incubating, you know, like that to me was pretty funny because he's like, I'm ready for war. I'm ready for the next generation of dragons. I've got these eggs incubating. Like, so I think he he's really like thinking about the long game of how like they can hold power the longest is really with the most dragons. So I think this scene like because Damon already has a dragon, right? He rides that red one.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Oh yeah, I forgot his name, the red dragon.
Caraxes, yeah.
But yeah, so I think that him trying to claim this other dragon is like just trying to be if he does claim this dragon and rides this dragon, he can be even more like their claim, their side can be even more threatening, right, to Vagar. Like the bigger the better type of thing. Um, but then we don't really see much like after does he really get to ride him or claim him? Like the dragon just kind of blows the fire.
Yeah, I in this world, I don't think a rider can claim two dragons at once.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
or at least you cannot ride two dragons at once. Daenerys in the main series was like a little bit of an exception in that she had three dragons that were hers, you know, but she only rode
Hmm.
one of them, right? She didn't ride the other two.
I didn't pick up on that
Oh no, that's fine. So
in Game
like,
of Thrones.
yeah, so like, in here it's like if a dragon loses a rider, they could take another rider, but if a rider loses a dragon, they don't take another dragon for whatever reason. I don't know why, but
Wait, can you say that one more time?
if a human rider loses a dragon, they don't take another dragon. And a human rider also will not ride two different dragons at the same time anyway.
Right.
But if a dragon loses a human, the dragon can pick up another human as a rider.
Oh, I see. I see.
Just like
Okay.
Vagar, the old big one,
Mm-hmm.
had Damon's wife was its rider earlier, and then now it has
Mm-hmm.
Aemond.
Huh. So then this scene is even more confusing to me because I
Yeah,
didn't
right?
know like that you could not claim multiple dragons because I thought Damon is just trying to like upgrade his dragon, right? Like what's the next biggest strongest one? And he wants that one. But maybe they are going to take that route and that's going to mean something not so good for Damon.
Yeah, they could change it. They could change how things
But
go.
that's not what the books say.
Yeah, that's how it goes in the
It's too
books.
much of a stretch.
Yeah, I just maybe it's just trying to get us, the audience, to realize that there's more dragons out there. You know, and with
Okay.
more that can be claimed. You know, anybody can claim it, right? So,
Yeah.
um,
So of the people at Dragonstone, who who like doesn't have a dragon? Like do the two girls, Damon's kids,
one of the
do they
girls,
have dragons?
one of the girls does, and one of the girls doesn't.
Okay. I wanted to see, I knew it. I was like, I don't think both of them have dragons, but I didn't know like, if it was one of them or both of them didn't have dragons. I would have liked to see her claim her dragon then, the one that didn't have one.
Yeah,
But
they don't
that's
really.
also not
I don't think she
hard.
ever manages to claim one ever in the books. I can't remember. Um,
Hmm.
and you know, she was upset that Aemon claimed Vagar because it was her mom, so she thought that maybe she could get a chance. But then I don't know. It might also be because Daemon is not uh like doesn't teach them as well, or at least
Hmm.
he didn't. He was kind of
Okay.
neglecting the one girl because she didn't have a dragon, you know.
Yeah.
So um, yeah, I don't know. And I actually don't remember what happens to them in the books either. But anyway, there are dragons. The point is there are dragons up for grabs, you know. And that's like a
Yeah.
weapon of mass destruction just being up for grabs is kind of a ominous thing. You don't know what's going to happen, right?
Yeah. So then, when you say up for grabs, does that mean even a non-Targaryen or Valyrian could claim the dragon? Because there's the third son, or there's three more sons of Rhaenyra that could claim dragons, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, but they're so small, right? And we need someone on that dragon, like, next week.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's
So,
a very good question. I'm glad you asked that. Um, Part of the Targaryen propaganda machine is that only Targaryens can ride dragons, but
mhm.
um, that's what they say, and that's what a lot of people like believe in the story. A lot of people believe that, and then a lot of people like us as fans believe that. But I don't believe that because There's a few incidents, or there's a particular incident in Fire and Blood during Jaehaerys' reign where a bunch of like 3 eggs get stolen by somebody, and they take them over the sea to Essos, and the king is really worried about it, and he tries everything he can to track the eggs down and get them back. Now, why would he be so worried about it if only Targaryens could ride dragons? You know,
Yeah.
um, and
Huh.
in the books there is, at least in Fire and Blood, there's further evidence, but I don't really want to spoil it. That um,
Okay.
other people other than Targaryens can ride dragons. So uh, I would say the answer to
Okay.
your question is no. Not only Targaryens aren't the only ones that can ride dragons. No.
Okay. Hmm. Well, yeah, then that makes sense. And I can see how all those unclaimed dragons can be such a big threat. But I didn't really see that as before because when I was watching, I was thinking, well, the next Targaryens that can even ride those dragons aren't, they're not going to grow up that quickly, and Rhaenyra needs people like right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I would say the danger is that if you need people right now to ride the dragons, you need people that are loyal to you, right?
Mhm.
Because you're giving them a
Mhm.
weapon of mass destruction. Um, what if they turn on you, or what if they go leave? What if they just take off, right? Yeah.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
um, okay. So we finally arrived at this pivotal final scene at Storm's End. Oh boy. Oh boy. Poor Lucerys.
I know. Well, actually, really quick, before we arrive at Storm's End, I thought it was so beautiful to see all the three dragons getting sent off on their missions flying together.
Mm-hmm.
But then I also realized I don't think we're ever going to see these dragons together again. At least maybe not all three of them. But I was really happy to see, like, kind of a grandmother figure with the two grandsons flying off to their different missions.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
Luke arrives.
Luke arrives at Storm's End. Man, I really like Storm's End. Seeing it that from the outside during a storm, no
Mm-hmm.
less. That was pretty cool. Um, of course, Luke
Because
lands. Go ahead.
this is our first time seeing Storm's End, right?
We saw. This is our first time seeing it from the outside. Um,
Okay.
Rhaenyra in that one episode in the beginning where she had all those suitors coming to her.
Oh
That
yeah.
was in Storm's End. That was the same room.
Oh. Okay. I didn't catch that.
Yeah, and it was the
But
same the
the
same lord,
outside.
the same Baratheon lord too.
Hmm.
So,
Okay.
um, yeah, Luke kind of comes with this message from his mother in hand, and she kind of, man, I was like, man, she's woefully underprepared him, like with this message.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, she, if he had to negotiate, he didn't know what to do. Right? He's like a 14-year-old boy. He needed somebody
Hmm.
with some political acumen, some political experience, um,
Yeah.
do something. Because like a lord is, yeah, they're not just gonna be like, okay, sure, it's to be like,
Hmm.
okay, but like, what's in it for me, Um,
Yeah.
I feel like Rhaenyra, or at least somebody, should have like foreseen that Baratheon wasn't gonna be that uh, subservient to them.
Hmm.
Um,
yeah, because even hadn't Otto had said something that like something along the lines of like generous terms are being sent to like the other lords of
mm-hmm,
Westeros, like
mm-hmm,
when they talked at the bridge. So that made me think like, okay, Rhaenyra, she the only thing that she's presenting is that you swore an oath to me. Are you gonna uphold it? Yes or no? But she can't really offer anything. She's betrothed like her two of age sons, and they're barely of age, they're 14, but they're already betrothed. So I don't know, like I knew it was going to be a stretch. I thought that they would prepare, or like I don't know, sending him, I knew I was like, man, this guy's not ready. Like we saw that in the scene when him and Juiceris are sparring, and like the guy is so weak,
Mm-hmm.
he can't learn anything because he's so far behind. And then in the beginning, like he's really just not confident, and which I feel, sorry, I'm kind of jumping around everywhere in the episode, but with Alicent's sons, it's like besides Aemon, Aegon doesn't want to be a part of learning how to rule, sitting at the court table, like, being in the hall, knowing any of that. He's like off doing who knows what, right? But then, like with Rhaenyra's sons, I feel like Juiceris and Lucerys, they've been present, they've been there, they've been trying to learn and like grow and stuff. I felt like, I don't know, Luke should have just been a little bit more something, but he was very not prepared.
Yeah. Um, it's kind of tragic for like the character that he tries but he just doesn't live up to it and he doesn't have any
Mm-hmm.
confidence. And if he had lived, maybe he could have grown up a little more and come into his own as an adult. But we don't get that.
Right. Mm.
um, you told me that you thought that Eamon's eye was really cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I thought it was super cool. Just like finding a gem that big to be like your whole eyeball. But then, when he like reveals it, it's so scary because I'm just like, ooh, like, well, this might sound a little bit bad, but sometimes when people don't really have the symmetrical eyes, it's hard to look at. But Eamon is like, it's so weird that you want to look at him.
Mm-hmm.
And he's so like menacing, even more so with his smirk and all of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
What did you think of the eye reveal?
well, I think I told you that to me it looked like a White Walker eye.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh,
Yeah.
he looks like he's half White Walker or something.
Yeah. Definitely something to be feared for sure.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
I think it also shows that like even though he's lost an eye, he like, some people might perceive like losing an eye as like being a little bit weaker, but like having that gem in his eye is like so, I feel like it's so powerful because like not only is it like symbol of like wealth and status to like have this, but it's also like, I don't know, it's like you took something and you made it like you didn't let it be like a handicap for you. Like you owned that.
Yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. Yeah, kind of like in the first episode of Game of Thrones where Tyrion told Jon Snow like he called him a bastard, right? And he's like,
Hmm.
and Jon Snow got all mopey and upset, and Tyrion told him basically that like if you take it and you own it and you wear it like armor, people can't hurt you with it, you know.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, and Aemond's, yeah, he's kind of done that. If there's anybody who's like overcompensating, I think it would be Aemond for sure. um,
Yeah.
Overcompensating for lack of confidence or whatever. But I mean, he does have legitimate beef with Luke because Luke is the one that cut his eye out.
Right.
And
I also thought,
go
sorry.
ahead. Yeah.
Well, I was just gonna say, like, in terms of the aging again and the casting, as much as I love like the Hot D team and all of them, I don't know, just I feel like the aging here is just really off, because like he's so much younger compared to Eamon, but at the time when it happened, it really felt like they were much closer in age when he did lose the eye.
Yeah. I think the problem is just that the actor for Eamon right now just looks so old. I think the actor himself
Mm.
is only 20 years old, but he looks like he's 40.
Oh my God, he looks so
Yeah,
old.
he looks older than me. So it's like,
And
it,
he looks older than Aegon, his older brother.
yeah, yeah. And Aegon looks pretty young, too. Aegon's supposed to be like
Yeah,
20, like early 20s, but he looks, and he already has two kids, right?
yeah. He's
Um,
supposed to be 22,
yeah, but he
I
looks
think.
like he's like 17 or 16 or something, yeah.
Yeah, he looks so young. I think that that is something I will say against the shows. Like the whole aging jump, it was a hard enough task to jump however many years they did. But now, like with the ages, it just doesn't fit. I mean, if the guy's really 14, can we have the 14-year-old be played by like, a 25-year-old? Like, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I think a big part of it too is that Allison's actress is only like 28 or something. Um,
Mm. She looks kind of old.
I think she looks a little too
What?
young.
No, no. Oh, wait, wait, wait. The actress is 28 in real life?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay. Because I was like, how could she have a son that's 22? But
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
getting
Exactly,
reality
exactly.
mixed up
I
with
mean,
the
she's a
show.
grandmother already now in the show. And it's
Yeah.
like, she looks a little too young. Like I think Rhaenyra, I think she looks about the right age. She looks about 30
Mhm.
something. So like, I just thought Allison looked a little too young, but um, I mean, if they
I
found
also
the
think,
best actress that they could, that's fine. It's just maybe they had to like, oh, because she looks so young, they have to get some sons that look so young. It's just that with
mm,
Aemon, they were like, oh, he just looks so badass that we have to use this guy or something. I don't know.
yeah. I think with Allison, if she had straight hair, she'd look older because her hair is like really curly and wavy. It's very youthful. But like Rhaenys, her hair is very straight and she looks old. And then Rhaenyra, her hair is very straight. She looks older, of the age that she should be in the show instead of old.
Well, why didn't they consult you then on that, Evalina? They should have
I
called
feel
you.
like that's 101. Like when I'm trying to look like older than I am, I straighten my hair. But then when I'm trying to look like young and fun, I curl my hair. Like I don't know anything, okay? But Hot D, let me know. I've got plenty of curling irons, flat irons,
You heard it here first,
curling
Hot D.
wand.
You heard it here first.
Yeah. Sorry, we can get back to Boris. This
Boris
guy.
Baratheon. Yeah, this guy kind of sucks. Not gonna lie,
Hmm.
kind of sucks. Um, yeah, but obviously Eamon came with the better deal, right?
Yeah.
With the better offer. So Boris is gonna go
And
with
and
him.
and Boris it looked like his three daughters were pretty old. So I think like he was pretty like finally, get one of them married
Yeah,
because
get
all
rid
three
of
of
these
them were
daughters.
unmarried.
Like, get rid of these
Yeah.
daughters. I got too many of them.
Yeah, and they looked like old. I was like, man, he hasn't married these people off yet, but it was a much better offer to get one of his daughters married to, well, Aemon won't be heir, right?
He won't be heir, but he still be brother to the king, right? That's still pretty good.
Yeah, and he would still like have some kind of high. Would he take over Hightower, their little lands?
No, the
High, high.
High Tower belongs to Otto's brother and his kids. So, um,
Oh, okay.
like,
So, besides King's Landing, what do Allison's other kids stand to inherit?
not really anything. Um, at the moment,
Huh.
yeah. So like that. I mean, that's why like Aemon is such a bitter, and that's why Daemon was so bitter too. Like the Targaryen
Hmm.
second sons didn't really get anything, you know.
Mm.
The
Yeah,
only thing they got is
that's
whatever the king would feel comfortable giving them. Um,
yeah. But I feel like Storm's End is not enough for Aemon, or at least the Aemon character that we're seeing. Like he would want something bigger than Storm's End.
yeah, it's not clear if he would be getting that. I don't know if Boros Baratheon has a son that could take
Hmm.
Storm's End from him, or if he only has daughters. If you only have daughters, that's kind of a problem, right, for succession.
Yeah.
Um, so I don't know. It's not clear. But I mean, from Boros's side, I mean, marrying a daughter off to the brother of the king, that's like heck yeah. You can't get the only thing better you can get is marrying her to the king, right? So
Yeah.
it's like
True.
that's pretty darn good. So um,
Hmm.
yeah, I mean, I don't blame Boros for taking that deal. He's just still kind of a dick in the way he
Yeah.
treats everybody.
Hmm.
Although
And then
he did say not in here, no fighting in here. You guys got to take it outside.
yeah. I didn't really catch that he couldn't read. when he called the maester over to read the note, Claudia caught it. So when he said maester, she was like, "What? He can't read?" And I was like, "I don't know. Maybe he just wants somebody else to read it, like for him, like to demonstrate his power."
Mm-hmm.
But then I realized I was like, "Oh yeah, like this guy really can't read." Because I read on Twitter that he couldn't read.
Yeah, it's actually pretty common for a lot of the lords not to be able to read. They just didn't like
Mm,
put the work in when they were young, um, and they just let
okay.
maesters do it all. But that, I mean, that also opens you to like having being manipulated by the maesters, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I didn't think about that.
yeah. And I think
Okay.
in the novel or in the books, Jamie Lannister is like thinking back on his childhood, and he actually was. It sounds like he was dyslexic, but they don't know what dyslexia is, right? So he's like,
Hmm.
he said he would get the letters all jumbled up, and he said if it wasn't for their dad like forcing him, then he would have never learned how to read. Um,
Mm.
and I guess you don't really need to learn how to read if you're a lord, as long as you have people that can do it for you. But if you,
Or that you can trust.
yeah, if you, yeah, that you need to be able to trust them. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. We take it for granted reading nowadays because we have a near 100% literacy rate, right? Um,
Yeah.
uh, but yeah, so not uncommon for lords to not be able to read. Um,
Hmm.
if Westeros was in like Asia though, they would all know how to read. They would all know how to do
Oh
math. They
yeah.
would all know how to read. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So, so basically, Boros says to take it outside. Oh yeah, so Aemon wanted Lucerys's eye as a gift to his mother, like an eye for an eye, right?
yeah, and I'm not sure how. You tell me. I'm not sure how serious he is about that, or if he's just saying this kind of stuff to like bully him. You know, was he like
Yeah,
really
that's.
serious about taking an eye, or is he just kind of trying to be menacing and bully him?
I think like part of it was like he was trying to be menacing, but the other part was like how was like Aemon trying to feel out how far Luke will just follow orders because he came only to deliver the message, right? And like he didn't come to fight, he didn't come to do pretty much anything else besides hand that paper over. So I felt like Aemon was really like, all right, like can I get this guy to do what I command, like how pliable, malleable is he? And that's why he's like, okay. And then Luke stands up for himself and is like, no. And I was like, but that's kind of not enough. But um, yeah, I did think it was really cool, like outside, seeing him like get on the dragon and seeing like the storm. They did like a really good job of showing just how like stormy it was. Because I didn't realize Storm's End was actually called that because it's actually stormy there.
Well, now you do.
Yeah,
Now you know.
exactly. And it like makes sense that, Storm's End kind of ended this episode.
Yeah, yeah.
Or a
they get on
storm
their
ended this
dragons, and it's kind of like this. I don't know. It's like the horror movies with the scary monster, but you can't really see the monster for a while. You know, it's kind of stalking
episode.
Luke. Um, so they kind of play that cat and mouse game for a little while. But what really turns the tables is that you see both of them lose control of their dragon, right? And I thought this
Yeah.
was really interesting, because this isn't. They don't talk about this in the books at all. Like it's kind of just like assumed in the books that like they have complete control over their dragons all the time, and anything the dragons
Hmm.
do, it's their decision. Whereas
Right.
in the show here, it was a really interesting thing to see that both of their dragons did something that they didn't want to do, which ultimately led to um,
This whole
this whole
dance of the
dance and
dragons.
Luke's death and everything, right?
Hmm.
So that was very interesting to see. I did not see that. I did not see it coming like that. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, and you kind of did you watch the inside the episode afterwards?
No,
Okay.
I didn't.
So they talked about Aemon, what he's thinking of, like, as he flies back to King's Landing, and it's kind of like, well,
Mm,
he's gonna kind of have to own this Luke's death, right? It's like you have
right.
a choice to make. You can say like either, "Oh, it's a total accident, sorry," or you can be like, "Yeah, I did it," you know.
I killed
Yeah,
him.
and being
Yeah.
like the kind of person he is, like the the badass, I guess, or the bad boy, he's gonna own it, you know.
Yeah. I think he's gonna brag about it. Like, I mean, right there in the moment, you see like the fear. Like
Yeah.
he's like, oh crap, like what did I really just do? You know? Um, because now I feel like Rhaenyra's coming for one of Allison's kids. Like, oh, you took one of mine and the stillborn baby too, and just everything, possibly also Viserys, and we could just keep going on and on about what Allison has taken. So now I'm like, okay, like Rhaenyra is coming, but yeah, I think that we see the fear in Aemon, but then knowing his character and like who he is, I think he's just gonna like brag about it and like get into like a better place or like settle into like a higher status. Because like, what has Aegon really done for the cause? So yeah, he'll kind of use that as a leg up on him.
That is very insightful. Yes, and I think that's probably where it's going. Yes, that's a good point.
Mm, okay.
Yeah. Um, so, excuse me. With that being the finale, how did you feel about the season as a whole?
I really enjoyed this season. I think it was so good. Like, okay, so I'm obviously comparing it like many other viewers to my watch of Game of Thrones.
Mm-hmm.
And like with Game of Thrones, I didn't feel this excited after the first season, even though it was like so good. um yeah, I feel like so excited for this one, and maybe that's my own bias because like I had actually read the Game of Thrones book and I did not read Fire and Blood. But I'm super excited for season 2. I think them keeping my excitement and interest despite all those time jumps and the cast changes, like even though there were some clear errors there that we kind of addressed in this chat here about people looking older than they should be or looking younger than they are, or whatever, it's still so intriguing and so exciting for me. So I can almost like look past some of those poor choices. Also, the Damon strangulation. Um, yeah, and just I'm ready for season 2.
What
That's how I feel.
What are you hoping to see in season two?
I don't know. I'm actually curious, like how much is gonna go down, like because I don't know if they've actually said how many seasons they're gonna be for this show. So I think I would like to see Juiceris grow up into like a little bit more of a like to what I would compare to like Rob Stark when he kind of took off. And then I don't know, actually, are we gonna get like time jumps and cast changes in season 2 too, like for the characters?
I don't think we're gonna get any more major time jumps. I don't think so. No.
So this is it then, for
Yeah.
the time being, before they start introducing new characters.
Yeah, I think
Okay,
this is gonna be it. I think we're done with the time jumps. I think. Don't
all right.
quote me on
And
that, but I believe we are. Yeah.
uh, okay, so we might not see him become a Rob Stark, but we might see him become like a early days Theon Greyjoy or something.
Something. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. So yeah, I really want to see like Juiceris take some control, and just like grow up a bit more, just because his mother, Rhaenyra, like she's gonna be making all these really big decisions. This is like a huge time for him to grow up and like come into his own. Especially since we didn't get to see that with Luke. I'd like to see Rhaenyra burn some stuff to the ground. Like, I'm ready to watch Allison burn. I'm ready to watch Aegon burn. Aemon, I don't want to see him like die right away just because he's very in the drama and I love that. So I do want to see like some kind of like sly moves and like maneuvering from him, and almost like a kind of like, yeah. I was gonna say Littlefinger, like moving behind the scenes, but I think we'll get more of that from Laris. Yeah.
Okay, so you sound very firmly on Team Black, Team Rhaenyra.
Woo woo, all the way.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I know those kids' fathers are questionable, but I still, Rhaenyra was named the heir. Period. That's where it stands. Okay, and with Viserys' dying breath, you know, I don't know how Allison could actually take that as legitimate when they were just like, pumping him full of that milk of the poppy drink. Like,
Mhm.
how could you honestly say like this is really what your father wanted, right? Like, I don't know, would she have taken any advice from him gibberishing along on milk of the poppy any other day?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I don't know. But Rhaenyra was named heir. I'm team Rhaenyra.
Yeah. I am team whatever makes this show go on longer. I'm on the fence.
Yeah.
I think
But you
they've done a really good job with this show. Um,
hmm
I think the way that the book was written, like not a lot of details were given, and you don't get to see what people are thinking. Not like in the Game of Thrones
hmm
novels. So like they've done a really good job of like filling in the blanks and fleshing out some of the characters that didn't get a lot of character stuff in the book. Um,
mm. So some really good writing then.
yeah, really good writing by the writing
Yeah.
team. Um, uh, I think even George R. R. Martin said like certain characters and things were better than how he wrote it, which
hmm
is amazing. I really
Yeah.
liked King Viserys, Paddy Considine.
Yeah.
That was just he just blew me even from the first episode. He just blew me out of the water. Um,
hmm
I like I like the characterizations of a lot of the characters. Like not everybody is wholly good or wholly bad. Some people are
Yeah.
wholly bad, like Larry Strong. He's wholly bad.
Yeah.
But a lot of them are gray characters. They're not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did like to see that, kind of going back to comparing Game of Thrones, like with some characters like Cersei, it's like she's just all bad, like she might love her kids, but she's all bad. But with this show, like we really get to see that internal conflict. We get to see like the softer sides, but then also like, those sides that can just be super cruel within one person. So, yeah, I do like that as well.
Well, now we have a long wait ahead of us, Evalina. You said 2024, and I was like, oh.
I'm hoping that that I don't know, maybe everybody online, if we just keep talking about it and commenting, maybe they'll hurry up,
They'll hurry up.
Like, all right, you started filming. Great. Who's editing this right now? Like, okay, it's been edited. Who's putting it together? Like, I want this to come at least by maybe October of next
You say
year.
like
That would
I'll
be
pay more for my subscription if it comes sooner.
HBO. Yeah, HBO, if you're listening, you can upgrade my package if season 2 comes out by October 11th, my birthday, 2023.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, well that seems like a good stopping point for us here. So I'm actually going to be back on Friday for another recording with my friend Josh. We're going to talk about Black Adam among other things. Um, so tune in for that if you want to listen about that. But thank you, Evalina, for talking with me and for the last few episodes about House of the Dragon. Hopefully, we can talk about something else soon if you want.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
All right. Thank
I'm
you.
always, yeah.
All right. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye bye.